Welcome to Legacy Makers, a conversation for dads. This is a space for building community and for honest conversations about fatherhood, the wins, the struggles, and the responsibility of building something that outlives us. Each episode, we sit down with leaders, dads, and friends to talk about family, fatherhood, and the kind of men our kids need us to be, because legacy isn't accidental, it's built. All right, well, typically we don't have builds. Like, you can pick up Legacy Makers whenever. If you missed a few episodes, you're not missing much. I'm going to go ahead and say, if you're listening to this right now and you did not listen to the first episode,
go back.
You got to go back because you're going to be lost. So we stopped last time. David, you shared about champion tribes, your vision. I gotta pile on this. So this is one of these intersectional moments, these divine intersections I talked about in the first. I remember coming to the champion tribes grand reveal.
Oh yeah.
When you guys had created a curriculum to kind of help dads say, look, I don't know how to do it. You guys basically turned this into something. You turned it over. My boys at the time were probably 7 and 5. And I remember being so moved by this. And I remember saying, this is something I want to do. And so it's funny, I am now half of a year into something I've done with my boys. And so it's my oldest son, Cam, 6th grade. What we decided was, hey, we want them ready to rock when they walk in the halls of high school. We felt middle school was this really formidable time. And so we've got there's 8 total kids. It's a brotherhood that we've created. We've got a little curriculum that kind of builds, and same thing. What does God think of you? What do your dads think of you? We're walking through once a month. Dads rotate, to your point about sharing the load. And watching these boys talk and to each other and see how each other think and know that there's more to just, we're on the same baseball team or we play sports together, go to school together, but like walking through a curriculum that's intentional, that their dads are by their side. And it was something I was very apprehensive for the same reason. It is the busiest time in my life. Right now, it feels that way at least. There was a ton of things I could have disqualified myself and these other guys for, but you know what? Number one, it hasn't been too much of a load. And even if it was, it feels incredible to be able to be doing this. And so I would say anybody that's listening to this, first of all, I'll let you talk a little bit about maybe they were going to find champion tribes, but just do something. Get with a group of dads. And even if y'all are meeting once a month, going to a pizza place, getting your kids together and having some intentional conversations, do something. Do not disqualify yourself from this.
That's good. That's good.
You know, and it's interesting you would say, go get pizza or something. What was fascinating is we were doing it for the boys, and that was our motivation. But much like going on a missions trip or whatever, we realized we're getting more out of it. But after each session, we typically go out for pizza, and the dads would gather around one table, the boys would gather around the other. They're having fun. But we're talking about life, and we're talking about, and it was so much of a ministry for the dads involved.
Couldn't agree.
Even though that wasn't and then when we would invite speakers in, everybody would say, who do you know? You know, if I were doing it today, I'd invite the two of you guys to come. It's like, who do you admire as a man? Invite them to come give a 20-minute talk for something they think a 13-year-old should know, and then just unpack it for them. And so I was taking notes faster than the kids were. We were learning more. You know, it's like, and I'll never forget one of them. You guys know Paul Trotty?
Of course.
Yeah. His dad was like
Colonel Trotty.
Colonel Trotty. So we invited his dad at the time to come, and he showed up in his military outfit at our front door. Oh, you can't imagine. He talked about battle plan. He brought all these maps and battle plans and talked about you're about to go into battle in high school and you got to be ready with your plan. But my youngest son, Daniel, his eyes got this big when the military guy showed up in his uniform at our front door, and we went down the basement and that kind of thing. And so it was incredible, and it was just as good for the dads as the boys. But at the same time, those conversations around the pizza table were the small group that we probably wouldn't have been part of, but needed to be. And we just shared life during those times.
I think dads need to be encouraged by this. I think we disqualify ourselves from the impact we can make.
Yeah.
Whether you believe in yourself or not, your child looks at you as the dad as if you hung the moon. And you have every bit of credibility based on how that child looks at you to take the reins and do something like this. And I just think it's so important.
Dude, we look at you as like you got it all together. So I mean, seriously, what you're talking about is you're like
spend
yeah,
long
the
with my
military.
wife and kids, and
Well,
they
so,
could tell you.
but
exactly
I'm
that's not
curious
the
because
case.
I've spent a lot of time with you. I've never asked you
Yeah,
something, but I'm curious if you were to go back and speak to a younger version of yourself
Yeah.
with your own kids, what would you tell him? What would you challenge? Is there anything you feel like maybe you missed on or didn't do what you wanted?
Yeah, well, definitely. One of the things I probably wasn't as equipped with my daughter is one thing, although she wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But I felt like I knew what to do for the boys, like champion tribes and all. I knew exactly because I'd been a boy.
Yeah.
But I felt a little more handicapped when it came to a man. Now, if you talk to her, I think she would tell you that was not the case. But I struggled more to figure out what to do with her
Yeah.
to help co-author her story than I did with the boys, only because I guess I didn't have that perspective. And the other thing is, all of us, I was very caught up in immediate gratification, immediate things. I think I would be less intense on that. In fact, a couple of principles, since we're talking about foundations here, here's one of the foundational principles that we used to talk a lot about at work, but also at home. Call it the 10-year principle. When I would have a trade-off I needed to make, one of the things I'd always go back to is 10 years from now, will this matter? Because it's amazing how many times the little things don't matter. I know you're talking earlier, Eric, about building a house or whatever, and you know that whole analogy. Well, we built our house. We only have had one house. It's the same house we lived in ever since Amanda was born. But we fretted over the details. Oh my goodness, the little like the plumbing fixtures and all that. We just felt like it was a bit. And in the end, it was very small. So the 10-year principle, I think, is a good one to think about. Okay, like with champion tribes that we were talking about earlier. Baseball, 10 years from now, is it going to matter? Or creating a whole blueprint for what it looks like to win in life, which is going to be more important 10 years from now. So 10-year rule is a really good one and to inform your trade-off decisions, because all of life is about trade-offs.
Yeah.
And the problem with trade-offs is we have to trade something off, and we look at what we traded off as the problem with the trade, like what we lost out on. You're talking earlier about, or in the previous episode, about me driving hour and a half down to Chick-fil-A. That was a trade-off decision. It would have been real easy to live 5 minutes from work, but I traded off something more important, which maybe brings in another principle we ought to talk about. I think is really applicable at work, but even more so at home. I think of it as, I wish we had visually, I could, but I think I can explain it to you. Call it the payoff paradox. The payoff paradox, and it's this. If we had a little box with 4 quadrants and label it payoff paradox, the first quadrant we could call short-term benefit. Many times in life, there are things with a short-term benefit. We could label it STB, short-term benefit, and they come in marketing world, we call it buy one, get one free. With every short-term benefit, you get a free long-term consequence at no extra charge. So many times we take the short-term benefit, we don't realize we're signing up for the long-term consequence. So for example, a real simple example, this morning, my alarm goes off at 6 o'clock. I can either hit the snooze button, take the short-term benefit, go back to sleep, or get up and go work out.
Yeah. Which one did you choose this morning?
I chose the workout this morning.
There you go.
Elliptical early this morning. So, but that didn't feel good. I'm not a morning person. So getting up every morning and doing it, that does not feel good. But long-term, if I took the short-term benefit every day, hit the snooze button, it'd feel good every day, but 10 years from now, what would it matter? I mean, it'd be huge. It'd be a big difference in energy, health, all these things. So you can take the short-term benefit, but you unknowingly sign up for the long-term consequence. Alternatively, you can take the short-term consequence, we'll label that STC, short-term consequence, and you get a long-term benefit free of charge. And what I love about that little payoff, there's so many things in life where taking the short-term consequence feels bad at the moment, but you rejoice later on.
I think Eric's going to use this at work this week. I'm
Well,
watching this.
Because it's the story of Chick-fil-A, really. Chick-fil-A is all about taking the short-term consequence that results in the long-term benefit. What I love about the Matrix, STC, short-term consequence, were Truett's initials. So always think of it in terms of true. It would always take the short-term consequence to enable the long-term benefit.
Mm.
And when you start to frame it that way, suddenly the short-term consequences don't seem so painful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we live in an age where we worship, immediate gratification. Everything's about immediate. What can I get out of it today? But I think if you take too much immediate gratification, you'll end up signing up for things you didn't expect down the road. In fact, I remember reading a book one time about a certain general. I won't, because it was during the Civil War, so I won't say whether it was a Yankee general or a Confederate general. But he was asked, if you could only leave your child one thing, one little phrase, what would it be? Teach him to deny himself. That was the one thing he wishes his son. And when I think about it, denying yourself is the short-term consequence. He didn't say it that way, but it's take the short-term consequence to enable the long-term benefit. And so many of the decisions at Chick-fil-A, closed on Sunday, is an example of that. There's a lot of consequence to closing on Sunday, but enable a long-term benefit. It's hard to replicate. Taking time when your kids are 13, a lot of short-term consequence to that, a lot of long-term benefit. But consciously thinking through trade-off decisions where I'm willing to take on the short-term consequence.
Yeah.
To enable the long-term benefit.
Yeah, and sometimes we think about these as these substantial, big moments. It could be as simple as, I'm so frustrated. My child has now woken up 4 times in the last 40 minutes. All I want to do is go to sleep. How do I show up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like short term, like if I'm only short term, I'm frustrated, I'm yelling like that. Take the long game is how do you show up with grace and care. I also think about, not a great Georgia Bulldog person here, but Nick Saban, I heard him speak a few times. And one of the things he said that stuck with me is, you're either going to suffer the pain of discipline or the pain of disappointment. And it's the same kind. You have to have a discipline is what enables you to really kind of do that short-term consequence. This doesn't feel good in the moment,
but embracing it.
And on the flip side, it's disappointment either way. Yeah. Like pain of discipline or pain of disappointment.
Yeah.
Disappointment's either going to be, if you do that, hey, not worried, I'm going to choose the easy thing. Long-term disappointment awaits. It's also painful to do the short-term consequence, but in the long term, that's where you're going to net out positive.
Eric and I talked about with this foundation episode is we've got to be intentional in the foundation we lay. It's not always the things that are seen. It's not visible, but if we're not intentional to build the right foundation, we're going to pay consequences long term. What else? Anything else? Like if you're sitting here, if you were in person with Eric and I and a group of dads, and you were to say, here's some things I think you need to know, what else would you say?
One other thing that really molded and shaped my thinking is words are powerful. Words are very, very powerful. And we tend to create labels for our kids many times unintentionally. And I really came face to face with this. I was at the Willow Creek Leadership Conference one time, and they had a speaker that talked about the fact, he was the conductor of the Philadelphia Orchestra, the Philharmonic Orchestra or whatever. And he talked about the fact he taught classes. And unlike a lot of professors would come in and say, only one of you is going to make an A, and they create this real competitive atmosphere, or no one's going to make an A. And to me, that always spoke to the fact they're not good enough to teach you enough to make an A. It's like, what a place to start. But this guy would come in, first day of class, he'd say, every one of you is going to make an A.
Now, I like that class.
Yeah. Now, I want you to spend the next hour writing down what that looks like for you to be an A student, and start to cast vision around that. And he said, what many of us do unintentionally is we're like that teacher that says, none of you are going to make an A, or only one of us is going to make an A. We create these circumstances that don't create the future. And so he talked about the fact that once you've labeled them an A student, they live up to and into that. But if you label them an F student, they live down to that. And the application as a parent that occurred to me literally when I got home. When I got home, I realized many times when you got kids, my kids probably at the time were middle school, probably about the age of your kids. And I would come home sometimes, and at night I'd be tired and frustrated. And the two kids are arguing with each other, Nick and Daniel. And maybe Nick is berating Daniel or belittling Daniel or whatever. I'd say, Nick, stop being so mean to your brother. You know what I just did? I labeled Nick as mean. Unintentionally, but what he hears is, I'm mean, and then he lives into that. What I started doing after that time is I'd come home and I'd say, stop myself, because we're all tired, we're frustrated. It's like, I had a hard day at work. It's like we want to just them to stop arguing with each other. But now, after that, I would say, Nick, that's not like you. You're not somebody who belittles your brother. What's going on? Why are you doing that? What I've now done is labeled him, that's not like you. You're better than that. And then he lives up to and into that.
Wow.
And I think
that's
that's
huge.
a really easy thing as a parent to get wrong. And I got it wrong for many years. But
I got it wrong last night.
Very intentional.
I got that wrong last night.
That's so good. So you're giving them a reputation to live into.
A reputation.
It's not saying
to.
you're always, but
it's not saying you're perfect.
positioning-
This is not like you.
That's so good. I think that's.
I mean, that's good for a leader.
Yeah.
If you're managing people, this is not like you versus you're a terrible worker, whatever. But labeling people with labels they can live up to and into, and many times they will.
Yeah.
Same thing.
That's so good. Calling people their highest and best instead of their lowest and least. I think that's really powerful.
I think about this conversation, David, and so fruitful on many fronts. I think about you, and I think about this recipe of intentionality plus action. I think oftentimes there's intentionality, there's planning, this is what I'm going to do, but that action, and we don't follow through because we're tired, because we've got these things. And I think the multiplier is over time. It's that consistency. So if you have that intention and you act, but it's a consistent action, it's a foundation that's a winning foundation to get momentum.
Yeah. I think one of the things I think Eric and I want to thank you for how you've lived. One of the guys probably the two names we mentioned the most on the podcast are David Salyers and Mike Lynch. Mike Lynch is Eric's pastor, good friend. And he always talks about how when at the end of his life, he wants the people that he loved the most to care about. If you go to a retirement celebration, you go to that and everybody else talks about how great you are and your kids say that's not true at home. You are a guy who has built an incredible legacy in the business world. But what I love is that knowing that it's true in your personal life as well. So that's just so impressive to me.
Yeah,
You got any thoughts on that?
I think it's right. I think that what's the quote? Those who know me the best love me the most.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, again, thinking with the end in mind. Like we challenged, I think, multiple times, like, what do you want? What are words that you want your children to say about you? What are descriptors? You got to reverse engineer.
We're going to give you the final word on this one.
Okay.
Bring us home.
Well, I've got one more principle that may unburden some people, because it's easy sometimes to listen to something like this and think, well, first of all, I don't have it all together. And you wouldn't have to spend more than 10 minutes with my wife and kids, and they could surely point out a lot of things I've done wrong. I'm like everyone else. But I'll give you this other principle that's really helped me along the way and also taken some pressure off. So one of the businesses I'm involved with is called Rome now. And
we're recording in a Rome right now.
That's true.
Yes.
I wrote a book called Remarkable. And one of the things that we've done at Rome's is we structure in certain elements to be what we call the remarkable elements of the location. And it's kind of an outgrowth of a principle in psychology called the peak end theory. And basically what peak end theory says, that over the course of a life, it's not every moment that matters, but there are certain peak moments and end moments that have disproportionate power and influence on the way things turn out. It's interesting. One of the questions I used to ask when I would interview people at Chick-fil-A to find the best people is I'd say, someone has produced a documentary of your life. I want you to walk me through that documentary in 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And I want you to focus on the things that molded and shaped you into the person I see sitting here today. And at the end, I want you to give me a title for your documentary. That was my favorite interview question. And it would really separate the wheat from the chaff, because the people who had struggled the most, who had overcome the most, their stories were the most compelling, but inevitably what they would cite is certain peak moments of their life and certain important people that shared with them something, that was an aha moment for them. And I'd always tell them, start with birth and work to the time you walked in this room. And ultimately, you can summarize your life in 15 minutes, amazingly. We make it so complicated and complex, but it can be done in 15 minutes. But what struck me is the things they would cite were the remarkable moments. They were the peak moments, that kind of thing. So I think as a parent, that we can take that psychology principle and apply it and say, we don't have to be great every moment. We just have to create certain peak important moments along the way. And it doesn't have to be every day, every week, even every year. It's just certain peak moments, because having heard story after story after story, those peak moments were far apart, but they were powerful. So I think as a parent, what we try to do is create those remarkable moments for our kids along the way.
That's good.
And again, it's really interesting that it doesn't have to be every moment. As a parent, we feel like it's got to be today, it's got to be tonight. But in the end, most of what you're doing today, tonight, will never be remembered. But find a way to orchestrate a few remarkable moments along the way. And those will be the things that mold and shape. And again, the two moments are peak moments, end moment. Those overwhelm all the other moments in life.
That's good.
So as a parent, take some pressure off, but create a few remarkable moments along the way, and they'll pay off handsomely.
It's beautiful, man. Well, listen, gratitude to you. You added a ton. Just Kevin and I having a conversation. I know our listeners will too. We thank you. Thank you for your influence, your words. Not all moments are equal. This was a big moment for us today. So thank you very much. David Salyers on Foundation, everybody. We'll continue the discussion with Legacy Makers.